How can we ever get to the point where we can actually have enough money to invest in something like silver, or just have a savings account or an investment account? Well, this is a question a lot of people have. You may have been following along these videos in the last couple of months where we've been talking primarily about silver investments. It's been a good investment this year, also something that I'm familiar with, but you might be wondering, well, how can I ever get enough money to actually start investing in this? Your budget may already be shot. It may be just as jam-packed as it possibly can be right now. You may even be borrowing off of a credit card right now just to make ends meet. So the idea of actually having savings or an investment, well, that may just be a fantasy to you now. And so here's that question. How do you get the money put aside in order to be able to start investing for your dreams or for the different goals that you have in life? And so that's what this video is going to be primarily looking at today. If you're looking for a discussion on silver, we're really just going to be talking about how we get the money to be able to invest in whatever investment that we want to do. My name is Rick Bloodworth. This is the Common Sense Christian Financial Channel. And so let's go ahead and look at this very question. It's going to start, by the way, with a budget. And a lot of people hate the idea of a budget. They like to be free men, and they're going to feel like that budget's going to constrain them, maybe even enslave them to the point where they have a budget that's their master and they're just working for the budget. Well, nothing could be farther from the truth. As a matter of fact, a budget hopefully will allow you to do several things, one of which is to find out where your money's already going, 2, where you'd like your money to be going, and 3, how you can actually achieve the dream of maybe saving for the future and getting some things that are really important to you in your life. So budget's going to be a necessity. It's not something that will enslave you. It's actually something that hopefully will free you up to accomplish some of your goals and really even some of your dreams. So let me give you an example of why a budget's important. I looked at the figures for what a new car payment is in 2025. This is, by the way, January 1st of 2026. One of the reasons why I thought it would be good to start talking about some financial goals today. But in the third quarter of 2025, according to Experian, the credit rating agency, the average new car payment is $748 a month. That's a lot of money. But maybe you've got a new car and maybe you're looking at something very similar to that and you thought, well, I can just barely afford that $748, but boy, this is the car I want, or this is the pickup I want. I'm not going to have any repairs out of pocket, and so let's go ahead and do it. But you don't think about the total cost. If you have just an older vehicle, one that maybe you paid $5,000 for, well, your insurance cost is going to be a lot lower because you don't have to get full comprehensive insurance on that. You can just get liability. That's a lot cheaper than comprehensive. If you get a new car, your finance company is going to require that you get an insurance policy, a comprehensive one, that will pay for the car in case you have an accident. And so here's another $100 a month that you're going to be adding to this car payment. Now you've gone from $848 to about $850 a month. And you had to earn money to get that. For those of us who are Christians, we also like to give of the first part of our income. Whatever that percentage would be will certainly vary from individual to individual, a very personal matter. I'm not going to really talk about that much other than just to touch on the fact that if you are giving a certain amount of your income, you have to take that into consideration too. So let's go back to this $850 payment for a new car, including the insurance. Well, if you're in a 15% tax bracket, including your Social Security, that's money you've got to take into account. And let's say you're giving 5% of your income to whatever worthy institution or group that you want to give that to. So now you add that together and you're looking at, you're only really getting 80% of your annual salary because of taxes and your giving. And if you give more than that, or if you're in a higher tax bracket, obviously you'll need to adjust that. But Let's say you've got 20% that's going to go to these two things, or just 20% that's going to go to taxes if you don't want to give anything. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take your $850 payment and divide it by 0.8, because that's going to actually tell you what you actually have to make in order to have that payment. And so you divide 850 by 0.8, and that's $1,062.50. And that'll show you what your total amount is, because you had to earn the money and pay taxes on it, or have giving off of it if you choose to do that. And so you're looking at about $1,062.50 a month in order to get this new car. That's kind of eye-opening, isn't it? You multiply that times 12, and you're looking at $12,750 annually just for your new car. That doesn't include gas or any other types of maintenance, like changing the oil and new wiper blades and such as that. So think about that. You might make an income of $75,000. Do you really want to take nearly $13,000 of that and reduce now your income to effectively $62,000? I realize you're going to have to pay tax on it anyway. I'm just trying to get the understanding of what we really have to make in order to have that new car. If you don't have a job at all, you can't afford the car payment, but if you do, you're going to have taxes in order to get money for any of your bills. So let's look at a used car. Let's say you buy a decent used car. Again, according to Experian, in the third quarter of 2025, the average used car payment is $532 a month. You add the $100 for insurance, because you're going to have comprehensive on that car too. Now you're up to $632. You divide that by 0.8, and you're looking at something much more along the lines of $800 a month, or $9,600 a year, nearly $10,000 a year, just for a used car that you decided you needed a good enough one to get you around, and that was what your thinking was on it. Well, this is the reason we do budgets. When we have a budget, we need to sit down and think about what we're really spending and what it's really costing us. And these are real world figures. These are real things people need to think about, because most people don't. They look at one thing. They look at the payment. Very often they don't even look at the taxes on that payment, and then they're surprised when they can't make ends meet. And then you do that with all your expenses, from your cable bill, your cell phone bill, your electric and gas, which you're probably going to have, rent or mortgage, which you're probably going to have. And you start adding all these things together, and you start seeing that a budget, I believe, becomes very critical. So what's the ideal budget? I'm going to show you something that I think a lot of you are going to instantly scoff at, especially those of you who are already established. Maybe you even already have a budget, but you're already established with your salary and with your bills. But I want to show you something that will allow you to really achieve some pretty incredible things in life if you can discipline yourself to get to this point. So I'm just going to put this up. It's very simple, but I believe it's going to give you an idea of what you're going to need in order to be able to invest and save in any amount for anything. So the goal is going to be that only 70% of your after-tax and giving income is spent on expenses. And by that, I mean your car payments, your mortgage payments, your utilities, your food, your gas, everything that goes into it. The goal is to spend only 70% of that and have 30% left over. Now, I know a lot of you are already at 110%, and so that's just a dream for right now. But let's use that as a beginning, and especially for those of you maybe who are just starting out. Maybe you're just out of high school and you're thinking about going to college, but you really don't know what you want to do. You're not going for anything specific. you just want to spend a few years and kind of enjoy the life that comes with college. Well, you're going to incur student loan expenses, and if you get a degree that is not useful in society, then all you're doing is you're incurring a pretty big bill that you're going to have to pay back at some point. As a matter of fact, the federal student loans are structured right now to where even if you claim bankruptcy at some point, your student loans don't go away. So be thinking about that for those of you who are just starting out, or even for those of you who are thinking about going back to school, not for something specific like becoming a doctor or an engineer, but just because you want to escape the harsh realities of the world for a little bit, and you can get some student loans to help you do that. You need to think about that beforehand. So, what are you going to do? You're just starting out and you don't have any bills yet, let's say. Be nice, wouldn't it? I'm 65. I've certainly incurred my amount of bills through the years and have had to pay the penalty for that. You've done the exact same thing. So let's try and get to this 70% point, this goal, and then see what we can do with it. Because if you have only 70% of your income after taxes allotted to your expenses, then you've got some money left over, don't you? You can put 10% in debt payoff. And by that, I'm not suggesting that that's not part of your 70% expenses as far as your minimum credit card payment or your mortgage payment or whatever, car payment, whatever that might be. I'm just saying that you take 10% now of what you've got and you use that to start paying down debt. Start with your highest interest rate debt first. And I think you'll be absolutely amazed at how by just doing this one thing that it makes this goal so much more achievable. The next thing I would do, or included in that, is I would take a 10% emergency fund, and I would just start building that up. I would certainly have at least $2,500 in cash for emergencies. Whether you keep that in the bank or you keep it at home, it really doesn't matter. If you've got the discipline to actually do this, you're probably going to have the discipline not to spend it on pizza on Friday nights. But if you do, well, this isn't going to work for you anyway. Part of a budget, part of responsible investing is discipline. If you haven't had much of that in the past, you're probably paying for it right now, aren't you? But again, I'd take 10% and I would build up an emergency fund. And the idea of an emergency fund is just to get you past things like a refrigerator going out, or maybe having to put a new transmission in your pickup truck or something like that. And so an emergency fund is going to allow you to take care of those bills that you cannot predict when they'll happen, but you can certainly anticipate the fact that they will happen. Appliances do go out. Vehicles do need repair. You need an emergency fund for that. And then I would take 10% and put it in a savings or an investment account. And this is where I believe you can really start to build for your future, and you can start to dream a little bit. What's your savings going to be? What's your investment going to be? I've told you about my investments through the years. We started off on a very low salary. When my wife and I graduated from college, I went to work. We had kids immediately. We were making $625 for each half of the month. That's $15,000 a year. And so we've always been on a fairly low budget. After I appraised real estate for a while, the budget became much more manageable, and we had a lot more fat in that budget. But then I became a preacher, did that for 30 years, and we went back to a very low income. And once we went back to that low income, I really had to learn how to budget. And by doing so, it also allowed me to realize that unless I started putting something aside for the future. We preached at a very small congregation that did not have a retirement fund. Well, if we didn't start putting something aside for the future was going to be pretty bleak. My Social Security right now and my wife's Social Security right now, after our Medicare Part B payment, is about $1,500 a month total. You can't live on that in America very easily right now, can you? Well, you're going to have to put something aside for the future. Fortunately for us, I gotten involved in silver at a very young age while I was still in college. I got used to trading in it. I got used to the different cycles that it had. And I also got used to the benefits of trading in something and saving in something that was a hedge against inflation, and sometimes made some pretty handsome profits along the way. And so that's what we did. What you'll do with your savings account or your investment account is completely up to you. And I suspect it's also going to be something that you're going to want to make sure is in your area of expertise. Now let's get real for a moment. Most people are not just starting out. Most people are where they're at today, and they're where, after taxes and contribution, money that they've got left over might just barely be paying their expenses. So you may have to pare these three accounts down. Maybe you can just put 5% in each one of them, and you're going on an 85% expense after tax. That may be something you can do. Maybe you can't. Well, then just put 1% in each, or 2%, whatever you can afford on that, and get started. On a $50,000 income, you can put 1% aside for debt payoff and pay down $500 for the year. And you can put $500 into an emergency account, and you can put $500 into some sort of small savings account, or buy $500 worth of silver. That wouldn't buy you much right now, but at different times you'll come across better deals, and you're getting a start, aren't you? One of the great plagues in our country right now, and I think in the world, just in society in general, are kids getting out of their parents' household and wanting to start out on their parents' level. Even though their parents may have worked and struggled and saved for 30 years or more to get to the level where they could afford the type of homes and cars that they have now. Well, so many kids want to start off at that point and more. How many kids drive better cars than their parents, or live in nicer houses than their parents? And then you start adding the expense of children and all the things that go along with that. Well, you can see why people get into so much trouble. We need to get ourselves under control at some point. A budget's going to help you with that, but there's also a perspective that I believe that Christianity instills in people that will help, and that is, we're just stewards of God's resources, whether we're talking about our time or our health or our money. These are just different resources that we have, and so when you start looking at it as His to begin with in the first place, then maybe it will help you to start looking at it more as a manager rather than as somebody who is just personally involved in it and maybe drowning in it right now. Again, reality is reality. You may be at 110% of your take-home pay that you need to pay expenses. Well, you're going to have to start doing something drastic. I like Dave Ramsey's financial piece because he talks about that. He doesn't talk about bankruptcy much because that's always a last resort. You incurred these bills. You have an obligation to pay them back if you can. But for some people, that may be the only solution. If that's the only solution, just make a prayerful solution. Do the best you can with your situation. You might want to sell some things. Maybe you're in too nice of a house, but you have a little equity in it. You can sell that house and you can step down in price. Is that a little bit of a bruise to the ego? Yeah. Do you think you might have to explain it to your family and friends? Well, you might too, although you don't owe them any explanation. Just do what you can. Maybe you've got a car that still has enough equity in it to be able to sell it for what you owe on the loan. Just go out and get you what Dave Ramsey refers to as a beater car for $2,000 or $3,000. You are going to have some repairs, but you're not going to have the added $1,200 a year in insurance payments, nor are you going to have that $1,000 a month plus payment month after month. You can afford some repairs at that point. And you might want to sell some of the things that you have. You might have some toys lying around, a motorcycle that you ride 2 or 3 times a year, a boat that you only get to use a few weeks out of the year. Whatever it is, if you need to get your budget under control because you've got more outgo than you've got income, then do what you need to do. Get a little discipline, take a little bit of adult responsibility, and get yourself out of this hole you've been in. And then you can start tackling these things, 1%, 1%, 1%. And then it goes up to 2%. You get your emergency fund funded, and you can put half of that into your investment and half of it into debt payoff. You get your debts paid down to where maybe all you've got's a mortgage payment. You can start saving even more than that. And so at some point, you're going to see your financial picture turn around. But you got to get control of it right now. And I would encourage you to do that very thing. People want to know, how is it that I could possibly afford to invest in something like silver or any investment for that matter when I've got the expenses that I've got? And it may very well be that in your current set of circumstances, you can't. But you got to start somewhere, and I suspect the best place to start is where you are. Figure out what you can do. If there are things you can sell, if you can downsize, then start with those things. Those will be the least painful. Maybe not to your ego, but to your bank account. And then as you start to do that, then start making some other prudent decisions. Do I really need this monthly subscription here? Do I really need a $150 internet and cable bill? You might be able to get by with just a $50 a month bill for internet and just watch things on YouTube. That's what you're doing now anyway. Whatever it is, you can start paring your bills down. You and your wife, you and your husband can get together and you can figure out where it is you want to be, and with a budget, you can figure out how you can do that. It'll do 2 things. It'll open up a line of communication that maybe you haven't had in the past, and it will also allow you to start dreaming a bit. You remember what dreams were like when you were younger? Maybe you're so beaten down right now with your reality that you haven't been able to dream in a long time. Well, get yourself under control. Again, I'm a Christian. I would commit whatever I'm doing to God, ask for His guidance and wisdom. Start reading the Bible. The book of Proverbs has got some of the best financial advice you will find anywhere. I've got a master's degree in finance and economics, and I can tell you for a fact the financial advice that I find in the Bible is typically way, way above anything that I learned in school or have learned since then. Use your common sense. Just start looking at yourself and your financial situation honestly. Think about where you would like to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, in retirement, if you're looking at becoming an advanced age like I am right now, and start thinking about how you can get there. It can be kind of fun, actually. And if you're doing it with somebody else, well, then you're on a team and you're working towards a common goal. Don't be working against each other. Find a way, a point of mutual agreement for what you want to do with your spouse if you're married, and then start from that point. Is it practical for most people to only spend 70% of their after-tax and giving income on expenses? The answer is no. Is it normal? Absolutely not. Is it possible? I can tell you for a fact it is. It's a little bit hard, but probably not as hard as you would imagine. So whether you're starting out, whether you've already made your mistakes, begin with where you are. Begin prayerfully with where you are. Try and figure out how you can be the best steward that you can be, and start living again. You'll find that life is pretty exciting when you have goals and when you have dreams. The only way you're going to be able to do that is to stop just spending thoughtlessly or spending every cent that comes in, and start getting your finances under control and stop letting them control you. Well, that's the video for today. I'll probably have more on the silver market because it's a pretty interesting market now in the next video, but I thought I would talk about that, especially on this first day of the year. How do we ever get money to put into silver or any other investment? Well, maybe this will give you some ideas. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what some of y'all have done. Some of y'all have been very successful in your own personal life and in your own personal finances. And if you have, let us know about that. If you've made mistakes like I have, let us know about that too if you'd like to share that. But please take advantage of the comment section. I think it helps a lot of people. It certainly helps me. But again, thank you for listening today. If you've subscribed, I truly appreciate that. Let's do our best to have the best year we can for God. I think part of that will be by getting our finances under control, so maybe we can start investing for the future. Thanks for watching today. God bless.